me about the competition and also about today's briefing. So thank you for taking the time to attend today's event. We're so happy to see you guys. I will now be picking out some questions which we've received earlier in the week. And after that, we'll also answer some questions which we have just received from you guys during this briefing. I will then direct these questions to Sunitha, Laura, or myself to clarify your doubts. So as this meeting is scheduled to end at 6 p.m. Singapore time, we may not be able to answer all the questions. Hence, we'll be collating all the questions received and we will prepare a Q&A document, which will be uploaded onto the Young Spikes competition website by 9 p.m. Singapore time today. You can also go to our website to relook at the Q&As anytime. So let me start with the first question, which was posed by Rina from Hakuhodo about the integrated competition. I will be directing this question to Sunitha from Conservation International. So Sunitha, Rina's question is, should the tone and manner of our campaign be similar to past Conservation International campaigns? Over to you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. So yes, the tone should follow our brand image. We've shared our brand guidelines, and this is the first time we're actually running such a campaign, so we can't reference a campaign that we've done in the past on this at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Sunitha. We'll move on to the second question by Jonathan from TBW Hakuhodo about the film competition. I will be directing this question to Laura from Spikes Asia. Hi, Laura. Here's the question. Is there anything additional that you wish to be included in the submissions for the film competition?
Thanks, Ryan. So for the film competition, we only, for the first round, want your PDF storyboard and your written submission. So please don't enter anything else, as we won't be able to show that to the jury. So yeah, just your storyboard and your written submission, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Now on to the third question by Alita from MNC Saatchi about the integrated competition. I'll be directing this question to Sunitha from Conservation International. So Sunitha, the question is, what is the KPI of our campaign? Is there a certain budget and list of commitments that you want to achieve?
So the purpose of the integrated campaign is to raise awareness with the target audience and eventually get them interested in supporting CI as a partner and donor. We do not have specific KPIs for this campaign.
Noted. Thank you. Now, moving on to the fourth question by Ryohei from Daiko. So he's asking a question that applies to both competition categories. And I'll be directing this question to Sunitha from Conservation International. Sunitha, why did you limit your target audience in the brief to Singapore and Hong Kong and not the rest of Asia Pacific or the world?
Well, that's a really good question. We are focusing the markets to Hong Kong and Singapore as we hope to engage more corporate partners and donors in these markets. There is a higher concentration of MNCs in these markets, and we've not done campaigns in the past in these markets.
Okay, got you. Now I'll move on to the fifth question by Payal from FCB Alka. So Payal sent in 3 questions, and I'll be reading these questions to you as they're kind of related, and you can then answer them together. So the first question was, when we say government bodies and CEOs, who exactly are we talking to? What sectors are they in, and what kind of companies are they? And the next question is the integrated campaign an awareness campaign to promote Conservation International as the preferred choice for partners in sustainability, or is there a specific call to action?
So let me take that question about the governments. Because we are focusing on sustainable seafood and ocean conservation, I would say the government departments that would be involved in this is environment and food sourcing. We're not narrowing it down to any particular sectors. CEOs can come from any sector, as we're hoping that this campaign will inspire CEOs to consider supporting CI's work. And the third part of the question, it's an awareness campaign on our work in sustainable seafood.
Brilliant. I think we've got the questions that were submitted earlier all done. So thanks, Sunitha. I will now be moving on to the questions submitted during today's live briefing. So I'm receiving lots of questions in the Q&A chat. Give me a minute while I look through the questions and then we can pick out the ones that we can answer now, right? I've got this one for Laura. So there's a question about the number of entries that will be shortlisted to the second round for the film competition. So Laura, what do you have to say about that?
So just like with the Spikes Asia's awards, we don't have a set number of entries that will go through to shortlist and a set number of entries that won't. It's all based on what our jury think. So if our jury think that your work is good enough to move through to round 2, it will. We don't have a limit on the number that get to go through.
Sounds great. Not too much pressure on us then.
Yeah.
So Sunitha, I've got a question for you. This question is about some of the organizations that you guys have partnered with before. So the specific question is, how successful is CI at getting organizations on board to go sustainable in Singapore and Hong Kong? Can you give some examples of partners you've done projects or campaigns with?
So we've partnered more with restaurants and like hotels in procuring sustainable seafood. So it has been quite successful where, you know, they've changed their supply chains because CI works on large scale. So we are also working through the supply chains and ensuring that seafood is sustainably sourced. Yeah.
Great. I've got this question here that is rather practical, but also very important. So I think it might appeal more to Sunitha. As you guys might know, whatever work that you do for this competition, it goes to helping CI, and CI can use it for their marketing. They could take parts of your idea or take your idea totally. They might even ask you for a future partnership. So Sunitha, the question is, will this campaign take place next year? Meaning, should they keep the potential of a pandemic in mind when creating their campaign? What do you think about this?
Well, I think we are hoping to launch it, yes, quite soon because this is one of our priorities to build awareness around our sustainable seafood work and also our sustainable fisheries. Yes, so it would be quite soon, I would say, and definitely take into account what happens during a pandemic and how food security is actually, you know, front of mind for a lot of people. So it's quite important, I would say.
Perfect. So guys, remember when you're working on your campaign brief, remember they has to be realistic and applicable to what's happening right now in the world. Let me see what other questions we've got. Okay, so I've got this question about the brief and the target group. So we've been mentioning that the brief is to make people aware of Conservation International's work by engaging with organizations. So are we talking to just C-levels of these organizations or making the public at large aware? Maybe we can answer this in two parts, one for the integrated competition and one for the film competition, because the target group are different for these two briefs. Laura, do you want to take this question?
Ryan, sorry, can you repeat it?
No worries. So the question is, you mentioned that the brief is to make people aware of Conservation International's work by engaging with organizations. So are we talking to just C-levels of these organizations or making the public at large aware?
So for the integrated, so it's different for both the competitions. So for integrated competition, we're focusing on the C-level. We're trying to increase the appetite to become a partner of CI. And for film, it's to make the public at large aware of the amazing work that CI are doing. Sunitha, do you agree with that? Is that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Laura. Thank you. And I also would like to add, like for the public, it's also one of the things that they should be aware of is how is their seafood sourced, right? I mean, usually when we are shopping for food, we don't really think about it. So it's just making people aware about sustainably sourced seafood and what goes behind the scenes. Yeah.
Brilliant. There's an interesting question here about brand personality. So I think we've specified the brand personality of Conservation International quite clearly in the brief, but I've got a competitor here asking is it okay to go the opposite way of the client's brand personality if deemed necessary? Maybe their idea requires them to be a rebel. I'm not sure, but what do you think, Sunitha?
So CI is very positive. We don't use shock tactics in our marketing. So we always have a positive spin. So you can use that side of things a little bit, I would say, to make people aware, but I think it always should end on the positive. Yeah, because we're very positive and we believe that there's hope.
Great to know that. We've got a question about budget here. Maybe we can reinforce this to the competitors. So the question is there a budget for this campaign that we should keep in mind? Sunitha, what do you think?
We haven't actually done a campaign on this level, so I don't have a specific budget in mind, but I think it's good to remember that we are a nonprofit and we don't do marketing per se. Most of our work is actually increasing awareness. So yeah, it won't be a big budget. Yeah, you just have to keep in mind that we are a nonprofit.
Got it. So guys, remember to keep things practical, all right? The next question is about the integrated marketing brief. The question is, should we focus on one particular business sector or industry for a campaign idea? Maybe I can ask Sunitha to take this first and then Laura can talk about it more later. Sunitha, please.
So we don't have a specific industry that we focus on. Our partners come from across different industries. We have partners from finance to tech, so it's, yeah, and we also have consultancies that are our partners. So I would say it's not specific to an industry, but you could suggest industries which you feel would resonate with this message.
And would you be okay if they have more than one business sector or industry during their campaign idea? Would that be okay?
Yeah, I think that will be fine.
Perfect. What about you, Laura? What do you think?
I agree. Sunitha's the oracle on this, so yeah, I agree with Sunitha.
Perfect. The next question here is about CI and your brand competitors. I'm not sure if I should call it that. Maybe other NGOs which have the same scope of care. So Sunitha, do you have any other NGOs in mind that you would compare CI with?
So a lot of people would compare CI with WWF or the Nature Conservancy. We're not exactly competitors. We do a lot of work together. I think the thing to keep in mind about CI is that we work on large scale. So we work on landscapes and seascapes. We don't look at conserving just a species or saving a species. We believe in large scale conservation that affects everything within that ecosystem. So that's the way we work.
Okay, got it. I've got a question about what does CI, or maybe what do you think, Sunitha? Why are some companies not taking up on the sustainability route? And what do you think might be some challenges when they are trying to create a campaign idea and trying to partner with companies?
Why aren't companies partnering?
Yeah, why are
with
some
CI?
companies not taking up on the sustainability route? That means they are not yet being sustainable, not talking about it. And what do you think might be some of the challenges when these competitors are doing out their campaign idea, when they're suggesting brands to partner with or do things with? What do you think some of the challenges might be?
So I think because CI is a little bit under the radar, and the work that we do, especially when you talk to people who are not aware about conservation, and a lot of people are more familiar with species conservation. So I think that's one of the challenges, to bring forward the way we work and how we partner with different stakeholders to make conservation sustainable. And also, I think the other challenge is that people don't really think about sustainably sourced food or seafood for that matter. And the fact that it's actually quite important. Food security is quite important, but it's not top of mind for people. So I think those are the two challenges when thinking about your campaign or your creative ideas.
Okay. Sorry, I've got a lot of questions asking about the budget again. So I just want to remind everyone that there's no budget that CI is looking at. We just remember that CI is a NGO. There's limited budget to any marketing campaign or creating an advertisement that they might want to. So just make sure that your suggestion is practical and it can be done.
Just to add to that, Ryan,
yes, Laura.
just reading through a couple of the questions. So if you have this idea that you think is amazing and that you really believe in, and you think that you'll be able to sell that into Conservation International as something that would be incredible and create a massive amount of awareness, then take that risk and go for it. It's how you explain why you would need a certain amount of budget. We're not saying that you have no budget for production or no budget for any of your ideas. It's just that everything needs to be thought of through the lens of, this is an NGO. They don't have huge amounts of budget, but if something is really incredible, then you can sell them into that journey and they can look at creating it.
Perfect. Thanks, Laura. Sunitha, I'm getting a lot of questions about, people wanting to hear you speak about a specific project that you've done. I know you guys do a lot of projects throughout the year, and a lot of them are for many years in committed partners. So is there one that you have in mind that you can speak about now? I know the one with P&G was quite a big one. Do you want to talk about that, or do you have another campaign that's more related to the brief this time that you can talk about and share with the competitors?
Well, really, frankly speaking, we don't have a specific partner for sustainable seafood, but we do work with a lot of different partners for ocean conservation in the Pacific area and also in Indonesia. So, and most of our partners are long-term partners. So we enter into partnerships between 3 to 5 years, and because conservation is not something that you do overnight. Your partnership impacts will not be seen on short-term basis. It's a long-term commitment that we go into with partners. So when I say partners, these are actually our donors who support our conservation work. And I mean, the P&G campaign is brand new, so we are not going to see results from that so soon, but we also have entered into a long-term partnership with another organization that will be launching in October this year. So that's also a 3-year partnership for Asia Pacific, and that covers ocean conservation, forest conservation, and also carbon. So basically they're supporting ocean and forest conservation to kind of sequester carbon from our atmosphere and to support mitigating climate change. So that covers sort of the 3 areas that we work with, but for sustainable seafood, we don't really have, or we've not done anything specific in that area.
Okay, great. So they have a blank slate to start with.
Yeah, yes.
Perfect. Laura, Sunitha, if you see any questions that you'd like to answer, feel free to let me know. I'm still sifting through the questions now.
I think a great question that probably I will ask to Sunitha after reading through some is that, how does a general partnership kind of roll out? Is it that CI go to the organisation and say, these are things that we need to do and can you pay for it, sort of thing? Or is it that you speak with them about what it is you both want to get out of it? Like, what's their return on investment and how does that partnership work?
Yeah, so it's actually the latter. So basically, companies would think about how they want to support conservation. It could be part of their goals, not necessarily CSR goals, but the way the organization is structured and the objectives in working in conservation and supporting conservation. Some companies would like to reduce their carbon footprint, so then we have carbon credits. We have a carbon credit program as well. So we work very closely with our partners to actually design a campaign to achieve the goals that they want to achieve, and at the same time support our conservation work as well. So in the region, we do work a lot in ocean and forest conservation, and also we're developing carbon credit programs as well. So yeah, it's really a partnership where we design something for them that supports the work that's already in place. So we don't, sometimes we start new projects, but most of the time is to support existing projects.
So it's a really bespoke partnership between
Yes,
the two
it is. Yeah.
organizations.
So no corporate partner has an identical campaign with us, I would say.
Great. Laura, I've got a question here for you.
Yes.
I've got a team asking, I assume it's for the film competition. Can we use stock footage and photos in our film? What do you think?
So our answer is probably no for that one, because we don't have any copyright for that. So it means that your work wouldn't be able to be shown on our website. It wouldn't be able to be shown if any of the work got put in campaign or anything like that, and it wouldn't be able to shown at our award show either. So we need everything to be original or owned footage by yourselves.
What about for the integrated competition when they are showing their ideas? Would it be okay to use stock photos?
So again, we need everything to be copyright free. So anything that you don't own or has any copyright issues, we won't be able to show on website or again at our award show. So it's best just to use things that are free to use or stuff that you own yourself or have created yourself.
Perfect, got it, thank you.
Oh, I just saw if we purchase the stock images rights, we can use them. Yes, I just saw it pop up from Joey.
Okay, well, one for Sunitha. There's a competitor asking, to become a donor or partner, how much money do they have to donate every year? Do you have a certain tier, or how does it work for Conservation International?
Well, our partnerships actually range from like, you know, $20,000-$30,000 to millions of dollars over a long term. So like, for example, in Singapore, we do have a schools program, like an educational program. And people who want to support that would support that program, and donations towards that program would not be in the millions of dollars. It would be like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. But conservation, because it's long term and because it involves so much work and so many people as well, some of our partnerships are cross the $1 million mark, and because it's multi-years, that's basically what partners are in it for the long haul, and that's an investment for them.
Well, on top of that, could you just elaborate a bit more about, for the corporations that have been working with CI, do you know what is the ROI for them? What is the reason that they want to partner with you? How does that translate into business for them, PR?
I guess it's being good global citizens. For some companies like P&G, it's reducing their carbon footprint, changing their supply chains, working with us closely because we have experts who work in supply chain management as well. So it's quite difficult to say because most different companies have different objectives that they want to achieve. But I think a lot of it is ensuring that we conserve nature for the future because with climate change and deforestation and so many things going on, we just want to ensure that the world is still going to be there for the next future generations. Yeah.
I think COVID has really brought out that question.
Yeah.
There was a question that I saw earlier about defining the difference between ocean conservation and sustainable fishery. Like, I think a lot of the competitors feel that they're almost similar, and because they're not experts on this topic, they find it difficult to separate the two. Could you maybe give your expert insight into what is the difference between these two?
So basically for this campaign, we are looking at sustainable seafood rather than ocean conservation. So we are looking at how how seafood is sourced and how it's the source to plate initiative. So basically, that's how I would define sustainable seafood. So it would be looking at how the methods of fishing, working with governments and businesses in ensuring there's a sustainable supply chain as well, and looking at also the human rights of the fishers in the region. I think that's important. Whereas ocean conservation is ensuring that corals are kept in place. There's no that the level of different species of fish are maintained in the ocean. There's no illegal fishing or things like that. So ocean conservation is a bigger scale effort, I would say. Whereas for this particular campaign, we are looking more at sustainable seafood and how the consumers are making their choices. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it's a big question to answer, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe, do you want to talk a bit more about Singapore and Hong Kong specifically? What do you think has been done in these two regions about seafood supply, ensuring sustainable seafood? Do you think enough is done, or do we need to do more? And considering that we'll be targeting the corporations as well as the PMETs in these two markets, what do you think the competitors need to keep in mind when they're thinking of the idea of their film?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Well, I think there are things in place to ensure there's sustainable seafood in these markets, but I think it's not on a large scale. So, the supplies are not everyone is aware where their supply is coming from, and a lot of restaurants and hotels don't necessarily use sustainable seafood in their menus. And these are the big players that actually source for seafood, right? And because these two markets are huge consumers of seafood as well. So I think, but I think a lot more can be done. That's one of the reasons that we are hoping to launch a campaign based on raising awareness about this in these markets.
Got you. I've got this question here about a film competition that I really like, and I hope Sunitha can answer this. So the question is, how does CI want the target audience to react or feel after seeing the film that they've made for the competition? What do you want them to feel inside? Like fuzzy or excited, thrilled, looking forward to something? What do you think?
So because the film is actually raising awareness with just everyday people, it's the man in the street. So basically we want them to be able to understand about sustainable seafood and why it's important, because we need the fish and the fisheries to be sustainable to ensure that people can continue to have seafood, and it doesn't dry up, right, or go extinct. And making them aware when they make their choices. It's the same as all of that building awareness about not using plastics, and people have become more conscious about taking that extra straw or takeaway mug, right? So it's just ensuring that people go away and think like, oh yeah, when I purchase something, I have to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally true. I think we've been a bit obsessed with straws recently. Well, I've looked through all the questions, and I think a lot of them are kind of similar or repeated. So I think we're good for now. What we'll do is we'll comb through the questions again, and if there are any questions that are not answered during this Q&A, we will put it up in a document on the website, so you can all go online to look at it later. We hope to get it up by 9 p.m. Singapore time. Give us some time to work on it, all right? So about 3 hours. Thank you so much. Laura and Sunitha, any last words before we end our briefing today?
I'm really looking, forward to seeing what comes out of this. We're really excited because we've not done something like this before, so it's really fun.
Laura,
Yeah,
what
just
about you?
excited to see all of your work, and thank you all for tuning into the briefing. There's so many of you on here. So yeah, we're really excited to see what you come up with.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. It was lovely having all of you here. We wish we could see you live at the festival, but like Laura said earlier, 2020 had other plans. So hope to see you next year in 2022. That's when the festival comes back. And remember to enter your work by 25th September, that is next Friday, at 11:59 p.m. Singapore time. Remember that it's Singapore time, please. So we wish you all the best and look forward to seeing all of your work. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, guys. Bye-bye.